Welcome to a story forged in vacuum, fire, and impossible choice. Tonight, we follow Darius Kane, once a disgraced fleet captain, now a smuggler, who accepts one final mission that will drag him into orbiting war, ancient planetary defenses, and a decision that could reshape the balance of power across the stars, from betrayal to invasion, from survival to stewardship. This is not just a battle for a world, but for the kind of man he chooses to become. Stay with us. The stellar vagrant screamed through vacuum like a wounded animal, hull plating blistering under concentrated cannon fire from Nexus Station's outer ring. Warning sirens overlapped in a shrill cascade as atmosphere vented from a ruptured aft compartment, scattering frost and debris into the void. Darius Kane locked his boots against the cockpit deck and forced manual control. Ignoring the autopilot's failure alarms, the main thrusters sputtered, then sputtered again. Oxygen levels dropped to 30%. Rex's laughter cracked over the intercom, half panic, half disbelief. Celine Voss gripped her seat, eyes unfocused, whispering pursuit vectors seconds before the targeting systems recalibrated. ARX-7 rerouted power from life support to propulsion without waiting for permission. A plasma bolt sheared past the cockpit canopy, lighting Darius's face in violent blue. He rolled the ship hard, diving into a narrow debris corridor between abandoned cargo hulks. Metal screamed as fragments scraped the hull. One miscalculation meant implosion. One hesitation meant capture. Darius did not hesitate. He cut stabilizers, killed artificial gravity, and aimed straight for the smallest opening in the field of wreckage. Survival had already begun. The debris corridor collapsed behind them in a blossom of fire as security frigates sealed the exit vector. The stellar vagrant tumbled end over end, inertial dampeners flickering in and out, throwing loose tools and sparks through the cockpit. Darius slammed his palm against the manual ignition panel. The hyperdrive spool lagged at 40% and climbing too slowly. Another barrage struck the stern. The ship shuddered like bone under a hammer. Rex swore, hands shaking over dead weapon controls. Celine pressed her fingers to her temple, breath shallow, whispering that the next volley would strike portside in 3 seconds. ARX-7's voice cut in, calm and cutting. Structural integrity at 22%. Suggest immediate jump, even with unstable coordinates. Unstable meant blind. Blind meant never returning. Darius glanced once at the receding silhouette of Nexus Station, its neon scars burning against the dark. There would be no redemption there, only chains. He killed long-range comms, locked random deep space coordinates, and forced the hyperdrive override. The engine core howled past safety thresholds. Light fractured across the viewport. The stars stretched into violent white threads. The vagrant tore forward into hyperspace without clearance, without certainty, and without any path back. Hyperspace convulsed around the stellar vagrant as unstable coordinates warped the tunnel into spirals of violent blue. The engine core overheated, alarms stacking faster than ARX-7 could silence them. Then the jump collapsed. Stars snapped back into fixed points. The ship lurched out of hyperspace far too close to a gravity well. Warning lights flared crimson as Darius wrestled the controls, narrowly preventing atmospheric entry at lethal velocity. Below them hung a planet cloaked in emerald cloud bands and fractured continents. Beautiful, silent, and utterly unscanned. Long-range sensors returned nothing. No cities, no satellites, no signal chatter, too clean. Celine stiffened in her seat, whispering that she could feel something beneath the clouds, millions of minds, muted, watching. Before Darius could respond, the engines cut out entirely. Every system powered down at once, as if a switch had been thrown from the surface. A shimmering distortion wrapped around the hull. Tractor field. The vagrant began descending against his commands, drawn toward the atmosphere. Rex stared at the dead control panel. ARX-7 recalculated survival odds downward. Darius set his jaw as the clouds swallowed them whole. Whatever waited below had already decided they were not leaving. The stellar vagrant struck the clearing hard, landing struts screaming as steam burst from overheated vents. The tractor field vanished the instant the hull settled, leaving only the heavy breath of jungle air pressing against fractured plating. Darius forced the cockpit hatch open manually. Hydraulic assist was dead. Heat and humidity flooded in. The clearing was too symmetrical to be natural. Vines spiraled in deliberate patterns around stone pillars, half buried in foliage. Then the ground shifted. Figures stepped from the greenery in silent formation. Tall, armored, disciplined. Energy lances hummed to life, aimed without hesitation. Celine inhaled sharply. Minds everywhere. Focused. Controlled. Not primitive. Not hidden. Watching. A woman emerged between them, taller than the rest. Bronze skin reflecting filtered sunlight. Crown of iridescent feathers arching above steady green eyes. She carried no visible weapon, yet every soldier deferred to her. Darius stepped down from the ramp, hands visible, pulse steady despite the targeting beams mapping his chest. The woman spoke in flawless galactic standard. "You carry what was stolen from us." Her voice was calm, certain, not accusation. Ownership. The jungle seemed to close in behind him. There would be no quiet negotiation here. The warriors did not lower their weapons, not even slightly. Heat shimmered between the charged tips of their lances and Darius's chest as Queen Lyssara stepped closer, studying him the way a commander studies terrain before battle. Behind her, the jungle canopy shifted aside, revealing glimpses of impossible architecture woven into living stone and suspended above the forest floor. This was no lost tribe. It was a civilization that had chosen invisibility. "The crystal is not cargo," Lyssara said evenly. "It is inheritance." Darius resisted the urge to reach for his blaster. Survival meant restraint. "Then prove it," he answered. Voice controlled. A murmur rippled through the formation. The Queen's gaze sharpened, weighing arrogance against resolve. "Worth is proven, not claimed," she replied. 3 trials, skill, discipline, mind. Refuse, and execution would be immediate. Accept, and they would live, temporarily. Rex shifted nervously behind him. Celine's breath slowed, sensing layered intent beneath the Queen's calm exterior. The price was not victory. The price was exposure. If Darius failed publicly, his crew would pay for his weakness. If he succeeded, he would bind himself to something far greater than a smuggling contract. He inclined his head once. "We accept." The launch bay opened directly into orbit, revealing a dense ring of magnetic asteroids grinding around Elysian Prime like the teeth of a cosmic trap. Darius climbed into the single-seat interceptor assigned to him, unfamiliar controls flickering to life beneath his hands. Across the launch platform, the Amazon champion sealed her canopy without ceremony. No countdown, no briefing. The bay doors snapped open and both craft fired forward into the chaos. The first impact warning screamed immediately as fragments ricocheted across his shields. The asteroid field pulsed with erratic electromagnetic surges. Scrambling guidance systems. Autopilot was useless. Darius cut assist functions and flew manual, trusting muscle memory and raw instinct. The champion moved like she was born in vacuum, anticipating shifts before they happened. She gained distance. A massive rotating slab blocked the narrowest corridor ahead. The safe path curved wide. Too wide. He chose the fracture seam instead. The interceptor skimmed the asteroid's surface, hull screaming as stone sheared away meters from his canopy. For a heartbeat. The ship scraped metal against rock and almost stalled. Then he burst through the opposite side, slingshotting ahead. The finish beacon flared. He crossed first, breath ragged, alive by millimeters. The arena floor was woven from living vines that shifted beneath Darius's boots, unstable and deliberate. Drums began low and slow, echoing off the surrounding stone terraces where armored Amazons watched in disciplined silence. His opponent stepped forward, tall, tattooed, movements precise as calibrated machinery. This was not a duel of brute force. It was rhythm, balance, controlled aggression. The first exchange came without warning. She advanced in a spiral step, striking not to injure, but to destabilize. Darius barely adjusted in time, mirroring her motion, redirecting momentum instead of resisting it. The vines tightened and loosened beneath his weight, reacting to imbalance. One misstep would trigger a collapse. Sweat stung his eyes as the tempo accelerated. Her elbow cut toward his jaw. He pivoted, letting her force carry through. She shifted patterns abruptly, attempting to break his timing. He recognized the tactic, pressure through unpredictability. He exhaled, slowed his breathing. Let instinct replace calculation. When she lunged in a final sweeping maneuver meant to unseat him, he stepped inside her center line and redirected her weight. She stumbled, knee touching vine. The drums stopped. Silence followed. He remained standing. The entrance to the temple yawned like a wound in the earth. Stone fused with living roots that pulsed faintly under bioluminescent veins. The air inside was colder, metallic, charged with something older than language. Darius stepped forward first. The walls ignited with shifting constellations the moment his shadow crossed the threshold. Symbols rearranged in impossible geometries, forming and dissolving before logic could settle. ARX-7's optical sensors flickered rapidly. "This is not architecture," the droid muttered. "It is computation." The floor plates responded to weight, glowing in patterns that altered with every step. One wrong path triggered a surge of energy that scorched stone inches from Darius's shoulder. Celine pressed her palm against the wall, eyes distant. "Echoes," she whispered. Minds layered over minds. The central chamber opened into a vast sphere where a holographic galaxy rotated slowly, threads of light linking star to star. No instructions. No key. Darius recognized the pattern from battlefield strategy. Supply lines, pressure points, convergence. It was not about finding the strongest path. It was about balance. He stepped onto a dim node and redirected flow through the smallest connection. The galaxy pulsed brighter. The chamber trembled. The temple doors reopened with a low harmonic resonance, ancient mechanisms settling as if satisfied. Outside, the tension in the air had shifted. The Amazon warriors no longer held their lances at lethal angles. Instead, they observed with measured curiosity. Queen Lyssara descended the stone steps toward Darius, her expression unreadable, but no longer hostile. The trials were complete. The crystal remained secured inside the vagrant's reinforced case, untouched, for the first time since entering orbit. Darius allowed his shoulders to loosen. Celine's breathing steadied beside him. ARX-7 recalculated survival probabilities must upward. Even Rex managed a grin that felt almost genuine. Negotiations began within a shaded pavilion overlooking the jungle canopy. Terms were discussed, alliances implied. The crystal would be examined under supervision, not surrendered blindly. It felt like progress. It felt like stability. Yet beneath the surface calm, something unsettled lingered. Celine's gaze drifted repeatedly toward Rex. His pulse was wrong, too rapid, too erratic. Darius sensed it too late. Peace had come too easily. And in survival, ease was rarely anything but camouflage. The alarm did not scream at first. It pulsed once, low, internal, almost polite. Then the secure case inside the stellar vagrant registered breach. Darius felt it before he heard it. A sudden emptiness in the back of his mind, where the crystal's faint hum had been lingering. He turned toward the landing platform, just as Rex emerged from the ship's ramp. Coat half-zipped, eyes wild, in his hands. The crystal glowed brighter than before, its surface alive with unstable light. Amazon guards reacted instantly, lances rising in perfect synchronization. "Stand down!" Darius shouted, but the command fractured in the chaos. Celine staggered as a psychic shockwave rippled outward from the artifact. Raw and uncontrolled. Rex stepped backward, shaking. "You don't get it," he yelled over the rising hum. "They'll kill me if I don't deliver it." The sky above the jungle darkened unnaturally, cloud cover shifting with unnatural speed. RX-7's voice cut through the confusion. "Orbital signatures detected. Multiple vessels exiting hyperspace." The crystal flared in Rex's grip, as if responding to something descending from orbit. The peace was gone. War was inbound. The sky tore open in streaks of white as Federation warships ripped out of hyperspace above Elysian Prime. Their hulls blotted out sunlight, layered in heavy armor and weapon arrays that pivoted toward the planet without hesitation. Shockwaves rolled across the jungle canopy as orbital engines corrected formation. ARX-7 transmitted visual overlays directly to Darius's retinal display. Cruisers, troop carriers, at least one Dreadnought-class flagship. This was not retrieval. It was subjugation. The first barrage struck the upper atmosphere, testing shield resistance. Energy ripples spread across invisible defensive fields hidden beneath the clouds. Queen Lyssara's warriors tightened formation, disciplined, but visibly tense. Rex stared upward, color draining from his face. "They weren't supposed to come like this," he muttered. Dropships detached from the fleet, descending through cloud layers like metallic predators. The ground trembled as landing vectors locked across multiple zones. Celine pressed her palms against her temples, voice strained. They're broadcasting override codes, trying to activate the artifact remotely. The crystal pulsed harder in Rex's shaking hands, reacting to the orbital presence. Darius felt the weight of inevitability settle in his chest. The mission had escalated beyond profit, beyond redemption. This was invasion. The first Federation dropships breached the upper canopy in pillars of fire, carving through jungle with surgical precision. Shockwaves rippled across the clearing, scattering debris and forcing Amazon warriors into defensive positions. Queen Lyssara stepped forward, her expression no longer measured, but forged from steel. "You have until sunrise," she said to Darius, voice cutting clean through the chaos. "Recover the crystal and neutralize the traitor. If you fail, Your crew dies before the Federation ever reaches us." There was no anger in her tone, only calculation. Survival for her people required sacrifice if necessary. Darius met her gaze, understanding the weight of the ultimatum. He nodded once. No argument. Celine staggered beside him, eyes flickering as she tracked Rex's panicked movements across the ridge. ARX-7 projected a countdown to atmospheric breach stabilization, 8 hours before Federation ground control synchronized fully with orbital command. Rex bolted toward the valley edge, crystal blazing in his hands like a beacon. The deadline was not sunrise. It was now. Darius sprinted after him, jungle tearing at his suit, pulse hammering. Redemption was no longer optional. It was the only currency left. Thunder cracked across the valley, as if the sky itself had split open. Sheets of rain slashed sideways under violent crosswinds, turning the rocky descent into a slick death trap. Darius slid the final meters down shale and mud, boots barely finding purchase. Below, the stellar vagrant silhouette flickered through the storm, engines warming for liftoff. Rex stood at the ramp, crystal blazing in his grip, lightning reflecting off its fractured surface. Every strike seemed drawn toward it. Celine reached the ridge behind Darius, breath ragged, fighting psychic interference radiating from the artifact. "He's terrified," she shouted over the wind. "They're in his head." Federation dropships roared overhead, searchlights cutting through rain and mist, locking onto heat signatures. The valley became a killing field. Darius raised his hands as he stepped forward, water streaming from his sleeves. "Rex, this ends now." The smuggler's eyes darted between the sky and the jungle edge, where Amazon warriors advanced in disciplined formation. His finger twitched near his blaster. The storm intensified, wind screaming through the canyon walls. One wrong decision would ignite the valley. A low-frequency hum rolled across the valley, subtle at first, then bone-deep. The rain changed direction mid-fall, droplets hanging unnaturally before collapsing in sheets. ARX-7's voice cut sharp through the comm. "Electromagnetic suppression field deploying. Recommend immediate analog fallback." Darius felt it in his teeth as powered systems flickered. Amazon lances dimmed. The vagrant's engines sputtered and died mid-spool. Federation troops advanced in tight formation, their armor insulated, weapons calibrated for low-tech conditions. Rex looked down at the crystal in horror as its glow intensified instead of fading. "They're forcing it to activate," Celine gasped, clutching her head as a psychic pulse rippled outward. Portable scanners sparked uselessly in the mud. Even Darius's wrist display went black. The field swallowed technology whole, reducing the battlefield to muscle, metal, and will. Thunder cracked again. Closer this time. Federation soldiers opened fire with kinetic rounds, tearing bark and stone apart. Amazon warriors charged without hesitation, shifting to blade combat. Darius reached Rex just as another surge radiated from the artifact, warping the air. "If that field locks fully," ARX-7 warned through static, "we are permanently grounded." The valley narrowed into a trap. Rex's grip faltered as another kinetic round struck stone inches from his shoulder. The crystal slipped, bouncing once in the mud before Darius caught it barehanded. The surge hit instantly. Not heat, pressure. The world slowed into fractured frames. Rain froze mid-air, droplets suspended like shards of glass. Sound warped into low vibration. Through the storm. Darius saw trajectories, bullet arcs, blade angles, troop formations, threaded together in luminous lines. The crystal pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. It wasn't power flooding outward. It was connection. The jungle canopy responded first. Hidden conduits beneath the soil ignited in cascading lines of blue light. Ancient defense pylons unfolded from rock faces. Energy capacitors charging with dormant fury. Federation armor units faltered as electromagnetic bursts tore through their shielding. Selene stared at him in shock as the psychic interference collapsed into clarity. Darius understood instinctively where to focus the next discharge. He raised the crystal and redirected its surge toward the densest troop cluster. A concussive wave rippled across the valley, disabling weapons and scattering soldiers. The field destabilized, flickering at its edges. Darius exhaled sharply. The planet was awake. The ground beneath Darius's boots vibrated with rising intensity. Not random tremor, but synchronized activation. Across the valley walls, seams in the stone split open, revealing cylindrical structures layered in ancient alloys fused with living root systems. Energy conduits flared along the jungle floor in branching networks, converging toward the horizon. The crystal pulsed in his palm, every surge aligning with planetary systems long dormant. Above the storm clouds, Federation cruisers adjusted position, unaware that the terrain itself was reconfiguring. Then the first cannon rose. It emerged from a mountain ridge like a relic reborn, rotating with deliberate precision before firing a concentrated beam straight into orbit. A Federation frigate shattered under the impact, hull rupturing in silent vacuum. The electromagnetic dampening field flickered violently as planetary emitters countered its frequency. Amazon warriors regrouped instantly, adapting to restored energy flow. Selene steadied herself, eyes wide but focused. A RX-7 rerouted tactical overlays through analog relays. Darius felt the network expand through him. Weapon placements, shield vectors, orbital trajectories. The planet was no longer passive terrain. It was a fortress, and it had chosen him as its interface. The surge did not fade. It deepened. As the crystal throbbed in Darius's hand, a second layer of sensation unfolded, data not seen, but felt. Defensive arrays across continents came online in sequence, each node sinking through his nervous system. It was not domination, it was dialogue. The planetary core projected patterns directly into his perception. Shield harmonics, atmospheric conductivity, enemy fleet rotation speeds. He staggered under the weight, breath hitching as his pulse synchronized with a rhythm far larger than his body could contain. ARX-7 detected the neural spike instantly. Cognitive interface confirmed, the droid reported. You are not merely triggering systems, you are co-authoring them. Selene reached toward him but stopped short, sensing the boundary between man and machine thinning. Within the crystal, a presence stirred. Ancient, patient, adaptive. It offered not commands, but options. Each carried consequence. Redirecting power to orbital cannons would weaken ground shields. Reinforcing shields would leave the fleet intact. Survival demanded prioritization. Darius closed his eyes and chose. Energy cascaded toward upper atmosphere defenses, amplifying targeting precision. The Federation flagship's trajectory shifted under sustained bombardment. Integration was not power, it was responsibility. The network pushed back as orbital cannons intensified their barrage. Feedback surged through the crystal into Darius's spine like liquid lightning. His vision fractured into overlapping tactical projections and white static. He dropped to one knee, fingers digging into mud as the planet's defensive grid demanded more throughput than his body could safely channel. ARX-7's voice spiked in urgency. Neural saturation approaching critical threshold. Disengage or risk permanent synaptic damage. The AI presence inside the crystal did not withdraw. It expanded, calculating countermeasures faster than human cognition allowed. Federation vessels retaliated, targeting surface emitters with precision strikes. One cannon exploded in a plume of molten debris, shockwaves rattling the valley. The crystal responded instinctively, redirecting energy to compensate. But each correction amplified the strain. Celine staggered as a psychic echo reverberated through her, blood trailing from one nostril. "It's too much," she gasped. Darius clenched his jaw and forced partial decoupling, severing lower priority nodes to reduce feedback. The overload diminished, but did not vanish. The system was stable. For now. Above. The Federation flagship recalibrated weapons, preparing a concentrated strike that would test the grid's final limit. The Federation flagship drifted above the storm line like a black blade poised to fall. Its ventral cannons unfolded in mechanical precision, each barrel rotating toward a single point on the surface, Elysian Prime's primary defense nexus. Through the crystal's interface, Darius saw the targeting solution assemble in layers of red vectors. Time felt elastic again, stretched thin between heartbeats. Shield capacity across the continent dropped to 40%. One direct strike would collapse the grid entirely. ARX-7 rerouted atmospheric sensors through analog backups, confirming energy buildup within the flagship's core. Estimated discharge in 30 seconds, the droid reported. Celine braced herself against a shattered stone pillar, eyes closed, amplifying Darius's perception through shared focus. Amazon interceptors launched from concealed hangars, weaving toward orbit in desperate arcs. But they were too small to penetrate the flagship's layered defenses. The planet vibrated under escalating strain as auxiliary emitters struggled to compensate for previous overload damage. Darius tightened his grip on the crystal, forcing synchronization with the last intact orbital cannon. The flagship's main battery ignited, light gathering into a sphere brighter than sunrise. There would be no second chance. As the flagship's main cannon reached critical charge, the crystal pulled Darius inward, beyond the storm, beyond the battlefield. The jungle dissolved into a sterile command deck from years ago. He stood once more on the bridge of his former fleet cruiser, alarms blaring, smoke choking the air. He saw the faces of his crew, young, loyal, trusting him to choose the right vector. He had hesitated then, waiting for confirmation, waiting for certainty. The delay had cost lives. The explosion replayed in perfect detail. Back in the valley, the flagship's targeting lock tightened, its beam seconds from release. The crystal did not accuse him. It replayed consequence. Survival was not about flawless command. It was about decisive responsibility. ARX-7's voice reached him faintly through static, reporting shield collapse probabilities. Celine's breathing synced with his, steady, refusing panic. Darius understood the pattern now. Waiting was failure. Perfect solutions did not exist in war. He forced his focus back outward, dragging the crystal's interface with him. The past remained, but it no longer dictated the present. The beam fired. He did not hesitate. The beam descended like a collapsing star, tearing through cloud cover in a column of annihilating light. Darius did not try to block it outright. He shifted the grid instead. The crystal flared as he opened himself fully to the planetary network, dissolving the last boundaries between neural impulse and defensive architecture. Pain surged through him, white and absolute. But he forced the integration deeper. Instead of resisting the flagship's discharge, he redirected its energy into secondary conduits beneath the valley floor. The ground ruptured in controlled fractures, channeling the impact into subterranean capacitors, long dormant. Shock waves rippled outward, but did not shatter the Nexus. The defense grid held. A RX-7 reported neural overload thresholds exceeded. Warning of permanent cognitive damage. Selene screamed his name as blood streaked down his temple. He ignored it. The only choice left was total commitment. He locked the flagship within a synchronized targeting lattice and authorized full counterstrike through every remaining orbital cannon. The planet answered. A unified barrage surged upward, converging on the flagship's weakened shields. The sky detonated in blinding light. Darius collapsed as the connection severed. Decision made. Consciousness returned in fragments. Darius felt the planet before he felt his own body, the pulse of tectonic plates, the charge in atmospheric currents, the alignment of orbital cannons cooling after discharge. He lay on fractured stone, rain washing blood from his temple. Yet his awareness extended far beyond the valley. The crystal rested against his palm, no longer burning but resonating in steady cadence. This time the connection was not forced. It was balanced. He sensed defensive nodes recalibrating automatically, Amazon squadrons repositioning in coordinated arcs, Federation remnants retreating under sustained pressure. ARX-7's diagnostics filtered through as muted data streams, confirming stabilized neural activity, the warning of long-term cognitive imprint. Selene knelt beside him, but even without opening his eyes, he felt her presence within the shared field. No longer overwhelmed. The planetary AI adjusted output according to his intent, not overwhelming him, not demanding more than he could sustain. Above the cloud layer, remaining enemy cruisers attempted reformation. Darius directed a synchronized pulse across atmospheric emitters, disrupting their shields simultaneously. The sky flared once more. This was not domination. It was harmony under fire. The Federation formation fractured under synchronized assault, with the flagship crippled and shield harmonics disrupted. Secondary cruisers attempted to regroup into defensive wedges, but the planet anticipated their vectors before maneuvers completed. Darius felt it. Micro-adjustments across atmospheric cannons, aligning through predictive algorithms embedded in the crystal's core. He redirected a focused burst toward the lead cruiser's power spine. The beam struck clean, cascading through internal conduits and forcing emergency shutdown across its fleet network. Without centralized coordination, smaller vessels drifted out of formation. Amazon interceptors surged upward, exploiting blind zones with disciplined precision. Explosions bloomed in vacuum like silent flowers, debris scattering in glittering arcs. ARX-7 relayed collapsing signal chatter from Federation command frequencies, retreat protocols activating. The dampening field faltered completely as planetary emitters countered its resonance. Dropships in the valley powered down mid-air, crashing harmlessly as their systems died. Selene exhaled slowly, tension leaving her posture as hostile psychic signatures diminished. One by one, Federation ships initiated hyperspace withdrawal, streaking away in flashes of white. The invasion line broke. The sky cleared. Survival shifted from defense to aftermath. The last Federation vessel vanished in a streak of white, leaving orbit scarred but empty. The storm subsided gradually, rain tapering to mist as defensive systems powered down in measured sequence. Darius released his grip on the crystal and felt the planetary network recede to a distant hum. Silence did not arrive all at once. It settled in layers, the absence of cannon fire, the fading echo of collapsing shields, the steady rhythm of wind through broken canopy. Amazon warriors moved carefully across the valley, checking wounded, extinguishing residual fires, reclaiming fallen weapons. Rex stood apart, drenched and shaken, watching the sky as if expecting it to tear open again. A RX-7 completed system diagnostics, confirming minimal residual orbital threat. Celine helped Darius to his feet, her touch grounding him back inside his own body. Burned earth steamed around them. The valley bore the marks of conflict, but it remained intact. Queen Lyssara approached without armor now, only rain on bronze skin. No words were exchanged immediately. None were needed. Survival had been secured, but its cost lingered in the air, heavy and unspoken. The crystal no longer burned. It glowed softly, as if exhaustion had tempered its brilliance. Inside the restored temple chamber, Darius stood before the central interface, while Queen Lyssara activated dormant glyphs along the stone walls. The holographic galaxy reappeared, but now its structure was clearer, layers of defensive matrices extending far beyond Elysian Prime. Celine inhaled sharply as she sensed archived memory within the construct. This was not a weapon forged for conquest. It was an ancient planetary guardian, designed to bind with a sentient mediator in times of existential threat. The Amazons had preserved it for generations, waiting for a mind capable of integration without domination. A RX-7 confirmed the interface protocols: adaptive AI, self-learning, unable to function without organic ethical calibration. Darius realized the truth then. The Federation had not simply wanted power. They had sought control over a distributed defense network spanning multiple hidden colonies. The crystal was only one node, in his hand. It felt lighter than before, but infinitely heavier in implication. Survival had awakened something larger than a single world. The temple lights dimmed as the crystal synchronized once more, projecting branching pathways across the chamber floor. Each represented potential futures, expanded alliances, defensive pacts, retaliation campaigns, isolation. The AI presence did not dictate direction. It offered probabilities. Queen Lyssara stood beside Darius, silent but resolute. The Amazons could reclaim the artifact fully and sever his link, restoring their autonomy at the cost of reduced reach. Or they could formalize the bond, accepting him as mediator between worlds, exposing themselves to broader galactic politics. ARX-7 calculated stability metrics for both outcomes. Celine watched Darius instead of the projections, sensing the deeper current beneath the data. He could leave now. The Federation had retreated. His name could be restored quietly through private channels. The planet would survive without him. Yet the crystal resonated faintly when he withdrew his focus, as if acknowledging that neutrality was itself a decision. Survival was no longer immediate threat. It was stewardship. He closed his hand around the crystal and redirected the projections outward, merging Elysian Prime's network with open diplomatic channels. "No more hiding," he said evenly. The choice carried consequence. The projections faded, leaving only the steady pulse of the crystal between them. Darius felt the weight of his declaration settle into the chamber like gravity. Silence stretched, fragile and uncertain. Then Celine stepped forward. She did not raise her voice, yet it carried with quiet clarity. "You are not choosing glory," she said. "You are choosing accountability." Her words were not accusation, but confirmation, through the lingering psychic thread between them. She felt the fear he kept contained, the fear of failing again, of binding himself to another command that could cost lives. She let him feel her certainty in return. He was not the man who hesitated on a burning bridge years ago. He had acted when it mattered. Queen Lyssara studied them both, recognizing the trust forged under fire. Around them, temple systems recalibrated, acknowledging the new governance pathway. A RX-7 recorded the moment as a formal integration event. Celine met Darius's eyes one last time. "Power without conscience is conquest," she said softly. "Power with conscience is protection." The distinction settled like a foundation stone. 6 months later, the Galactic Registry updated with a designation no one had anticipated. Embassy of Elysian Prime. Sovereign and open. The structure did not rise from polished alloy alone. It grew from living stone, integrated with diplomatic architecture, defensive conduits hidden beneath its foundations. Darius stood at the central observation platform, overlooking orbit, where traffic lanes now shimmered with sanctioned vessels rather than warships. The crystal rested within a transparent containment lattice beside him, dormant, yet responsive. It no longer pulsed urgently. It observed. Delegations arrived under strict protocols, escorted through layered security fields that balanced welcome with vigilance. Queen Lyssara remained present in every negotiation, her authority unquestioned. A RX-7 managed encryption grids and adaptive shield harmonics, ensuring no covert override could breach planetary systems again. Celine moved quietly between chambers, scanning intent rather than words. The embassy was not a monument to victory. It was a calculated exposure, a declaration that hiding was no longer survival. Darius felt the weight of leadership differently now, not as command, but as continuity. The galaxy watched. So did the planet beneath his feet. Even in peace, the crystal never went completely silent. Late in the orbital cycle, when diplomatic corridors dimmed and traffic lanes thinned to distant glimmers, Darius would feel a faint resonance at the edge of perception. Not warning, memory. Residual echoes of the battle still mapped within the planetary network. Energy scars, recalibrated defense nodes, dormant contingency protocols awaiting potential reactivation. ARX-7 logged micro-fluctuations within outer grid sectors, nothing hostile, yet never entirely idle. Celine sensed it too, the subtle tension beneath calm surface negotiations. Elysian Prime had declared itself to the galaxy. Exposure meant attention. Some emissaries arrived with genuine intent, others masked calculation beneath courtesy. Darius reviewed long-range scans personally, ensuring no hidden fleet massed beyond sensor horizon. Survival had shifted from immediate violence to strategic vigilance. The cost of integration lingered within his nervous system as well, occasional flashes of orbital geometry appearing behind closed eyelids. Phantom pulses synchronized with planetary cores. He accepted them without resentment. Protection required awareness. Peace was not absence of threat. It was sustained readiness, shaped by choice. Darius stood alone at the embassy's upper balcony as the sun of Alpha Centauri dipped below Elysian Prime's horizon. Light refracting through layered atmospheric shields in soft prismatic bands. Traffic beacons blinked calmly in orbit. No longer war signatures, but trade routes and diplomatic couriers. The crystal rested within its containment field behind him, its glow steady, restrained, alive. Below. Amazon patrols moved through forest corridors, not as hidden guardians, but acknowledged protectors. In the distance, construction platforms expanded outward, weaving new structures into living stone without severing roots. Celine joined him without speaking. her presence quiet and certain. RX-7 transmitted routine system stability metrics, all nominal. The planet's defensive network hummed beneath everything, not dominant, not dormant, balanced. Darius felt no surge of power now, only alignment. He had once chased redemption as personal restoration. Now it manifested as continuity between worlds. The galaxy remained unpredictable, fractured, dangerous, but Elysian Prime no longer hid from it. As twilight deepened, the crystal emitted a faint pulse synchronized with his heartbeat. Survival had evolved into stewardship. He remained, not as conqueror, but as guardian, in the end. Survival was never only about defeating an enemy fleet. It was about responsibility, about choosing protection over control, courage over hesitation. Darius did not reclaim his past. He redefined his future. Elysian Prime stands not as a weapon, but as a promise. And the galaxy, vast and uncertain, still turns. If this journey moved you, follow the channel and join us for the next chapter among the stars.